So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
No matter your faith or community, this is a crime against humanity. Gaza turned into a prison camp.
Hello. Welcome to Palestine Today. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells, and we're a radio program, Palestine Today, dedicated to news about Palestine. My co-host, British journalist and campaign filmmaker, Harry Fear. Hi, Harry. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be back on the show after the technical problems last week. I missed it.
You missed it, and we're gonna have Alan Hart back on again because I know that you would love to have a fellow British citizen to talk to. Plus,
and
Alan
he's
Hart
no
is
ordinary British citizen.
Exactly. So, Palestine Today brings you the unfiltered truth. We're excited to be here. We have a fabulous guest lined up for you today. But first, let me talk about my plea that I always make, because it's important to keep the show on the air. I'd like to make a plea for donations. You can go to my website, thekathleenwellshow.com. All donations for Palestine Today go towards production expenses. Our job, Harry and I, are concerned with keeping Palestine Today on air. We have to pay for our airtime. And so it's important that you donate so that we can keep the show on the air. The good thing about paying for our airtime is that we're able to bring you the truth, the unfiltered truth where you'll get nowhere else. I think there are only 2 other stations, Don Bastanti's station, KPFK, and Jeff Blankford station in Mendocino County, that actually talk about the Palestinians in the West. Otherwise, you have to come here to KCAA to hear the truth about the situation of Palestinians, to hear about their lives, to hear about what's going on. Again, please make a donation at thekathleenwellshow.com. All donations go to keeping the show on the air. We're very grateful. We're very appreciative to anyone that makes a donation, no matter how small. So that's what I wanted to say. What would you like to say? Oh, and I also want to mention that we do have sponsors: the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs, Playgrounds for Palestine. Those sponsors have only sponsored a limited amount of shows, a finite number of shows, and so this is why we must make a plea. So if you're able to make a donation, if you'd love to see the show stay on the air, please go to my website, thekathleenwellshow.com, and make a donation. So that's what I wanted to say. Harry, do you want to add anything?
No, only it's very important to second what you said, because this show is something which is of enormous public service and benefit. And every week we're picking up new followers and listeners, and so it's really important to keep this going as a means of information security, that we have this means of getting information out from the West Bank, Gaza, from Palestine and about Palestine, to try and redress the power balance, which is at the moment tipping certainly against the Palestinians.
I second that, and so, should we get straight to news from Gaza, or do you want to do something else?
Actually, we've been unable to make contact with a person who was going to give us the news there on the ground today, so we'll move on to our guest.
Okay, our guest. Well, before we bring on our guest, which is Mr. Edward Badeen, he is a Palestinian who is the president of the, what's the name of it? Wait, let me see. The Palestine's Children. That website is www.palch.ch. Before I bring him on, though, I'd like to mention a quote that, I want to open up the show with quotes about Palestine so that people can be familiar with what people have said and what people continue to say about Palestine. So here's the quote. It's a quote from Ariel Sharon. His quote is, "Israel may have the right to put others on trial, but certainly no one has the right to put the Jewish people and the state of Israel on trial." Well, we here at KCAA, we here at Palestine Today, we are putting Israel on trial because she deserves to be put on trial. Why? Because she's ethnically cleansing the Palestinians. If no one deserves to be put on trial, Israel deserves to be put on trial because she's ethnically cleansing the Palestinians. That's what I wanted to say. In fact, the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon, made that quote on BBC News Online, March 25th, 2001. So that was the quote. Now I'd like to welcome our guest. He is calling in from Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland. He's the president of the NGO Palestine's Children. So, Mr. Badeen, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Or rather, it's in the evening where you are. Is that correct?
Right. Thank you for having me on your show.
You're very welcome. So the first question I'd like to ask you, how did you start the organization, the NGO Palestine's Children? What motivated you to start it? Why did you start it?
Well, actually, it was in the year 2001, of which you have the quote of the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon. And at the beginning of the year, almost, he let his bulldozers. The bulldozers under his command were raging in Gaza Strip and demolishing houses, and it seemed so black in the eyes of the Palestinian refugees. When I used to go to Lebanon, I used to visit the refugee camps. I had contact with the social workers there. And then I found they must hear a certain sound from Europe telling them someone out there thinks of you. And we started this organization in order to help the poorest of the poor in the refugee camps and also in the West Bank, especially young ladies who want to go on with their study, but they need a little help here and there for their books or whatever. So we organize sponsorships for people who are willing to back them up. And the organizations there, of whom we were very sure that they work properly and they help a lot and they help the needy, really are not, he's my cousin or she's my cousin and I'll back them up, or anything of the sort. And they keep the correspondence, also personal correspondence between the child and his sponsoring family or parent or person. And it's going on all right, but we are still a small group of now about 130 members. And we try to do our best.
You try to do your best. So, but, last week we had Alan Hart, British journalist and truth teller Alan Hart, who has devoted more than 40 years to the Palestinian cause. Are you familiar with his work, Mr. Badeen?
No. What's his name again?
Alan Hart. Hart. He's a British journalist, and he was talking to me about Palestinians in the diaspora. Palestinians who have left Palestine.
Yes.
You are considered. Are you someone considered a Palestinian in the diaspora because you live in Basel, Switzerland?
Well, I am like that because although I left my homeland as an Israeli citizen, and then it was made impossible for me to go back, and that's why I I asked for asylum, political asylum, and luckily enough, I got one, although at that time Israel was considered, that was in the middle of the 70s, Israel was considered, through propaganda of course, that it's the oasis of democracy and so on. So I was lucky to be recognized as a political, I was given a political asylum.
Do you think that you've been able to do more for your homeland over there rather than if you happen to have the life direction of ending up still in Palestinian territory?
Of course, because I was teaching at a high school in Galilee, and I was teaching English, and two subjects for Palestinians were made as difficult as possible. That was the policy of Israeli governments in order to keep the number of Palestinians, of young Palestinians who want to go to universities, and since they live in Israel and officially they are Israelis, it would be not nice to declare, Palestinians are not allowed except for this and that number. So they tried to make it difficult for high school pupils to get good notes in English or to get proper courses in English and in math. So without math, you can't study at the university any scientific branch like engineering or whatever. And without English, you have no resources as far as bibliography is concerned. And I was fighting against that at Galilee Christian High School. That's the name of the school in Galilee. And I was so sorry. I wanted to write my PhD and go back in order to further help in this direction. And I was so sorry that I couldn't do what I wanted to.
And so, that's your story. What, I'm concerned about, or rather, I don't want to say I'm concerned, but I've understood that Palestinians in the diaspora who are not in Palestine have sort of, how do I want to say, I don't want to say disconnected, I want to say are not embracing fully Palestinians in Palestine. Do you think that's an apt characterization?
Well, I'm sure there are some Palestinians in the diaspora who are living like that. The causes are different. Some of them, for example, in Switzerland, 10 years ago, I heard from a reporter that there were 600 Palestinians, young Palestinians in Switzerland, and if I knew anything about them, I said, no. Mm-hmm. And they were refugees. They were applying for asylum, and most of them came from Lebanon or Jordan or Iraq after the war, or Libya when Gaddafi changed his mind about whatever he meant Palestinians. He once drove thousands or 10,000 out of the country and told them, go to your Palestinian state or something like that, which means people in the diaspora, a certain part is busy running behind the loaf of bread, wanting to eat, to have papers, to have an identity, and but on the other hand, there are some rich individuals who want to forget about Palestinians, and this is also a fact. And there are some who are interested in backing up their families there and the cause of the Palestinians as such. And I am one of them.
And you're one of them. Well, I know that you wanted to talk about the Nakba. That's something that's significant and important in your life, in your experience. Can you touch on that for us?
Of course. Now, for example, how did I learn about the Nakba? Well, it was early in the 50s when I was still a child, and my uncle came over from Acre, Akko, and we lived in Nazareth. It was near Christmas. And then at night, I heard him talking to my father and weeping, saying they gave us a Christmas present. Now, as a child, I couldn't make much out of that. But on the next day, when we saw them off to the bus station, I asked my father on our way back, I mean, it's nice to have a present on Christmas. Why would he cry? Who gave him a present that made him cry? And then he told me, look, your uncle, you didn't know that, but he lived in a village in the north of Galilee, and all of the villagers were asked to leave their village only for 2 weeks. That was 1948. And then because the military wanted to search for weapons or anything dangerous, and they left their village. And when they wanted to come back, they were actually 2 villages, but and 2 Christian villages by chance, and they were forbidden. So they made a lawsuit against the military governor, and they won. However, the military governor refused to let him back. He made an appeal against this decision, and they won the appeal. But still, they were not allowed. He told them to come around Christmas, and they went there at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and they saw before their eyes how the rest of their villages were blown up. And that was a present on Christmas. And that was so they lived as refugees in their own land, in their own country. And that was the start of understanding what Nakba is. Because afterwards, of course, I knew that other children who I met at school who used to speak a little bit different dialect from the Nazarene Arabic dialect. And then I knew they were refugees from other surrounding villages which were destroyed by the Israeli forces, and this was made systematically.
Mm-hmm. Edward, I want to ask you 2 things. With regard to the refugees, of which there are so many, countless millions, but there are 2 questions I want to ask. The first is, what should happen to them? What would be a good status or location for them? And the second thing is, what do you think will happen to them or their descendants?
Well, what will happen, this needs a prophet, and I am not a prophet. However, what should happen in order to have a future for an Israel or Palestine or a combined state, this I know. If the refugees do not get their right, then there will never be peace. And this is something which was so sharply noticed by your Secretary of State during the first year just before recognizing Israel, when he said to his president, if we recognize Israel on this basis, that a minority, third of the population gets 54% of the land and they own only 7%, this means a war without end. And Israel was asked to agree for letting back the refugees in order to be accepted at the United Nations, and then they refused. So without giving them the right back, if they want to, of course, many don't want to go back because they want to start a new living, then there will be no peace. And that is frightening. And we have it now 65 years already. And Americans are paying also for backing up this, the governments of Israel, no matter what they do, good or bad. And if I may quote, what's his name, Sharon. Sharon said something else also. He told his foreign minister at that time, now he is the president of Israel, namely Shimon Peres. Shimon Peres wanted to calm him down in order not to use so much force against Palestinians. So he told him, look, Israel's policies, if continued with violence, it might turn the U.S. against us. And that's what he answered him. Quote, every time we do something, you tell me Americans will do this and will do that. I want to tell you something very clear. Don't worry about Americans' pressure on Israel. We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it. I mean, this is something unbearable for any minister president to say that is America. We control America, and the Americans will back us up whatever we do. And this is very, very sad for the future of Israel and for the future of Palestine.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've heard that quote before. I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen him actually. I've seen Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sitting in someone's home making that statement that Israel controls the United States. However, yes, some of us Americans realize this. There are 350 million Americans. How many of the 350 million Americans realize this fact? I don't know. I have no idea.
But I know one name, one famous name, which is Pat Buchanan, when he said that the capital belongs to the occupied territories of Israel.
Who said that?
Pat Buchanan.
I don't know that name. Who's Pat Buchanan?
He's
Pat Buchanan. Pat Buchanan.
Okay,
that's so funny. My engineer just told me.
He's a congressman, I think.
No, he's not a congressman. He ran for president, Pat Buchanan. Well, yeah, one out of 300.
Probably, I don't know.
Yeah, Pat Buchanan. My engineer had to tell me. Can you imagine? Thank you, Joe. But anyway, Pat Buchanan, exactly. He's a pundit on MSNBC. He ran for president on the Republican ticket. However, he's one person.
Yes, of course. And I know there are other persons, but I hope the number will grow, because there are now there is a group of young Jews for not only for peace but for just peace, who are active. Mm-hmm. I know their number is still small, and I know that everybody who speaks out will be in one way or another will pay the price for it. I mean, probably, Paul Findlay, I don't know if he's still alive. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the Congress, and once he wrote a book with the title "Who Dares to Speak Out?"
Who dares to speak out? Yeah.
Yeah, but still, this shall not stop us from trying to let people know more and more about the truth of what has been going there in Palestine and Israel before 1947 and after. You know, there are myths. Always we hear the same myth repeated and repeated again, and many Israelis were surprised that these myths are not true, and they refused to believe that they were not true. I mean, I can understand that, but I won't accept it. That, for example, the ethnic cleansing took place before the Arab armies started a war against the declared state of Israel, because the decision to make this two states of Palestine's more than half, or the third of the population, which were Jews, and the 2/3 who were Arabs, who should take 45%, and nobody asked the Palestinians if it was discussed between the United Nations at that time and the Jewish Agency. I mean, now more and more truth is coming out, and we should talk about that, because otherwise you will have like a bad wound every now and then, a new explosion with bad blood.
Exactly. A new explosion with bad blood if we don't discuss the truth. So we're going to take a break right now. And actually, I love what you're saying. It's so, it resonates with me as a black woman, because history is so important in black Americans in America, African Americans, whatever we are. We have lost our history. And that is, yes, when you lose your history, you've lost everything. So we're going to take a break. The number here is 888-909-1050. If you'd like to phone in and speak with Edward Badeen, he's so eloquent. He has wonderful anecdotes. Please call in and speak with him. Ask a question. Make your comment. We're going to take a break. When we come back from the break, we'll open up the phones, and Edward will be here. We'll be right back.
Gaza turned into a prison camp. Apartheid won't divide the West Bank.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Can you smell the aroma of sweet, delicious fruit and flaky, melt-in-your-mouth crust? What is that? It's Cobblermania. Cobblermania is a specialty dessert company founded several years ago that sells delicious fruit cobblers that are baked daily and sweetened with diabetic-friendly agave. Agave, you ask? Yes. It's like sugar, but not sugar, and better than sugar. Cobblermania cobblers are sold at the Torrance, Hollywood, Culver City, San Dimas, Marina Del Rey Farmers Market. Also, apple and peach are sold daily at the Golden Bird in Los Angeles. You know Golden Bird that sells the fried chicken? At 83rd and Western, daily apple and peach cobblers. And yes, guess what? They're coming to the Pomona Fairplex Truck Fest. In fact, they're there right now, Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Gate 1. Some of the favorites: peach, apple, mango, blueberry, peach, blackberry, apple, white peach. If you go to the Pomona Truck Fest Gate 1 on Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. and mention me, Kathleen, you'll get something special. You don't want to miss it. I've had them. They're delicious.
Playgrounds for Palestine is a non-for-profit 501c3 organization dedicated to upholding the Palestinian child's rights to play. This is a right enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We operate through a volunteer board and staff, the generosity of our supporters, and a lot of heart. To date, Playgrounds for Palestine has constructed 15 playgrounds in Palestine, as well as refugee camps in Lebanon and Syria. To contribute to this most worldly cause, please go to our website at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org or send a check to Playgrounds for Palestine, P.O. Box 559, Yardley, Pennsylvania 19067 at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org. Are you fascinated by the Middle East, but worried that U.S. foreign policy may lead yet to another war? Do you care about civil rights? For the past 30 years, the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs has brought its readers the real news, minus the corporate media spin. Read about Palestinians trying to survive the world's largest occupation. Learn how your hard-earned tax dollars fund that illegal occupation. Find out how much your members of Congress has received from pro-Israel PACs, and much, much more. Visit the Washington Report's website, www.wrmea.org, or call 888-881-5861 to request a free sample copy. Better yet, subscribe. It's only $29 for 9 issues. Mention Palestine today and get a bonus gift.
Join the conversation now. Call toll-free at 888-909-1050. That's 1-888-909-1050.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
We are the people.
Welcome back. This is Palestine Today. I am with my co-host, Harry Fear, British journalist, campaign filmmaker Harry Fear, and also our guest today is Edward Badeen, who is telling a wonderful, I'm engrossed, I'm engaged, I love hearing what you're saying. You're touching on so many issues. Mr. Badeen is our guest today. He is in Basel, Switzerland, and he is the president of the NGO Palestine's Children. This is a wonderful NGO. You can go to the website. Edward, can you give them the information as to where they can look up this information?
Well, it's under www.palch.ch.
So that,
and we have some of the pages are already translated into English. We are working on the rest there.
That's fantastic. Well, what you left off with, Edward, is the fact that if the truth isn't told, there will be open wounds and there will never be peace. Elaborate on that idea. Elaborate on that thought.
Well, a part of this idea is when you want to take the rights of others, and in order to not look in a bad image, you try to make of the human beings on the other side non-human beings. This is something we have. You as a black African, when slavery was on its peak in the 17th century, a theologian from Portugal came with the idea to say blacks are not really human beings, and even women, it's not very sure that they are real human beings. They have a soul, for example. So what remains? Okay, then it's legal to sell them and not give them the rights, either women or blacks. So whenever you have an enemy and you make a devil out of your enemy, then how would you make peace with your enemy? And that's what happened to the Palestinians, who were the original people of Palestine for couple of thousands of years, and the Muslims and the Christians there, a big part of them were Jews who converted to Christianity and probably later on others to Islam. And I mean, this is no ground of this discussion. But if I want to convince my own people whom I want to help bring them to Israel and tell them, look, these are inhuman. It makes it easy for them to take my house and not think of me. Because whenever people are killed in Palestine, you hardly hear a name. If anybody is killed from Israel, you hear a name, and you see pictures, and you see weeping mothers. For Palestinians,
it's like Gilad Shalit, the Israeli prisoner of war, the captured soldier, the captured train killer, almost a household name in the West as a victim of the Israel-Palestine conflict. But the thousands of Palestinian prisoners, no one even knows they exist.
You're right. Or like during the 70s when Israel bombarded with refugee camps in Lebanon, I used to read on page 50 probably down, 150 Palestinians were killed with a bomb, a big bomb. So you read a number. No people. A number, no people. And on the other hand, the language is that is being used. For example, when Israel was in southern Lebanon, they called it security zone. Security is something good. So if you do anything against the security, then you are a terrorist. So fighting for liberating your land in Lebanon makes you a terrorist. This is something we've through history, the French were terrorists when they revolted against the Nazi occupation. They were called terrorists from the Nazis. And when the French were fighting the Algerians, the other way around, the Algerians were fighting for their freedom, they were called terrorists. So if you are with us, you are fighting for the right cause, and you are a freedom fighter. And if we don't like you, then you are a terrorist. The same happened with the same person and group like Bin Laden, when he was backed up by the United States of America and Saudi Arabia. He was a freedom fighter, together with his friends Mujahideen. And when he was considered differently for I don't know reasons that not necessarily explainable for us, all of a sudden now these are the worst terrorists. Okay, what's the change? What made the change? It's not the humanity the atrocities that were done by the group of Al-Qaeda in Kabul together with the Taliban when they were backed up by American CIA and the secret services of Pakistan. They were unbearable, but okay, they were our people, so they are good. And this is actually disgusting.
It's disgusting. So, Edward, how do you feel about us taking a phone call now?
I'm ready for that.
Okay, let's take a call from Theodore in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
hi, Theodore. How are you?
Hi, Kathleen. Question. With the anniversary of the death of Robert F. Kennedy, and Sirhan was supposedly the person who murdered him, what kind of backlash do you feel that particular incident in history had or has on the American people today? Sirhan, that's what I need to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Sirhan has committed murder, and he should be punished for that. What did the American government do for its soldiers in the destroyer, or I don't know now, it's not a destroyer, but Liberty it was called.
Oh, the USS Liberty. What I think
Yes.
the caller was getting at, and let me just sort of touch on this for listeners. I know we have many young listeners on our air. Sirhan was convicted for assassinating Robert F. Kennedy. Sirhan was Palestinian. And I think the caller was raising the issue that maybe there was some kind of conspiracy or something going on there, because we know that, in fact, I just saw a documentary with Robert F. Kennedy's wife, Ethel Kennedy, that indicated, and I did not know this, that Robert Kennedy went to Israel, or it was Palestine at the time, when it was first being named a country in 1948. So, there's a lot of gray smoke here. I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors here. I think that's what the caller was getting at.
Mm-hmm. It is possible, but I must confess I don't know the background of this story. Like it's just like what about the declaration of Mr. Richard Pearl when he wrote 1996 we need a new Pearl Harbor. What does it have to do with the war against Iraq? I will let this for other people who know more than I in order to elaborate about it. I can't. I don't know the background of the story of Sirhan. I know who he was. I've lived it on TV. It was not TV was not that active as today, but still I saw his picture and so on. So I don't know what in quotes conspiracy or whatever. I have no idea.
Exactly. And you mentioned Congressman Paul Finley, who served 11 terms in Congress but lost to Dick Durbin in his bid for re-election in 1982. A year after the September 11 attacks in 2001, Finley published an article saying that this attack, the 9/11 attack, would never have occurred were it not for the United States' uncritical support of Israel. Let's take the next call from David in Vancouver.
Thank you, Kathleen. Regarding that issue, that was a direct result, according to what Osama bin Laden said, and you can find it in the Guardian newspaper, a 2004 article titled, "It Did Not Cross Our Minds to Attack the Towers." The USS New Jersey was bombing lobbing 16-inch, 2,000-pound shells into Palestinian refugee camps in support of the illegal invasion by Israel into Lebanon in 1982. The following year, our Marine barracks were attacked, the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, and in 1993, the bombing of the basement of the World Trade Centers happened in direct response to that attack by the United States on innocent people that murdered hundreds, if not thousands, of Palestinian people and Lebanese people around Beirut by our support of Israel. Americans need to wake up. Israel isn't their friend. I won't go into a diatribe. I do have a question, though. How does your guest, Mr. Badeen, how does he see this issue ever being resolved, given that Israel is intransigent? From the beginning, they have wanted nothing but to move all of the Palestinians out of the way. The more than 1 million people that lived there, 750,000 who were driven out of their homes as the Zionist terrorists launched the a campaign of eradication all across the land of Palestine to establish their state in 1948. How does he see this thing coming to an end as long as Israel has the full backing of the United States Congress, which approves ongoing wars for Israel now, too? Iraq and now Syria, Libya was all of these wars that the U.S. has spent trillions of dollars and are engaged in currently are to protect and defend and allow Israel to get away with its war crimes on a regular basis. How does he see this ending if our Congress continues supporting this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. So the question, how do you see this resolving itself, Mr. Badeen?
Well, I think if the conscience of the individuals in the Congress will not wake up for the benefit of America first, I see only calamity coming to the United States. The United States has been driven through, that's my point of view, through the policy of the neoconservatives who were more Zionist and even Likudniks than Americans. I mean, to the brink of bankruptcy. It's not only the real estate issues that caused the whole lot. You know, it was solved so simply, and we go to Iraq. We take the oil Ministry of oil, and then we decide what the prices are going to be, and with the margin only we can finance our war in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and if necessary in Korea. That was, I mean, one has taken the whole American people as if they were a group of not understanding people. I mean, that was crazy. And nobody was taken to custody or whatever. I mean, Saddam Hussein was a cruel and so on. And you watched probably, he was sentenced to death and executed so that he won't speak. Where did he get the chemical weapons from? The American not foreign minister, but what's his name? Not Dick Cheney, the other one.
Rumsfeld, Donald Rumsfeld.
Rumsfeld, right?
Yeah.
Rumsfeld. So that it won't come out. It will remain a secret, but such secrets are causing or driving America onto the brink of bankruptcy. And interestingly, now as an answer to the caller, a friend of mine said it seems that solving the problem will be, first of all, bankruptcy of the United States, which is backing up Israel with its money, and when there is no money, there is no Israel. So, and then the problem will be solved. Of course, this is a very sad, pessimistic solution, but a positive solution I can't see without the change of the policy in the Capitol.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, this is interesting because last week we had Alan Hart on, the British journalist and truth teller who has devoted more than 40 years to the Palestinian cause, and he said essentially the same thing, that actually the fate of the Palestinians and the fate of Israelis, too, lies in the hands of Americans. But alas, most Americans don't even realize it. Because why? Because they're watching TV and the mainstream media is misinforming them and leading them astray. In fact, John McCain was just in Syria last week. Can you imagine? So let me turn it over to you, Harry, for your last comment or your closing comments.
Well, just listening to everything our guest has said, it's sort of mind blowing, because in so many ways it comes back to the Western and particularly the U.S. control, power and dominance in the world and everything that goes with that. But also the theme that I really picked up on that Edward was talking about was the racism and the dehumanization. And there's one quote which I'd like to read in a moment, which always rings profoundly with me, which is not that there is also that, there's not just that there's the problem of racism against Palestinians and neighbors in the region, but also a supremacism, which actually is in a way more powerfully insidious. And so I wanted to read this quote that I found on the internet, and it seems well sourced. It's from the Jerusalem Post, apparently, from May 10th, 2001, and it's by Israeli President Katsav, apparently. So this is a quotation which, I've heard such messages in this quotation several times, but this is one very poignant one. I read it now. There is a huge gap between us, that is Israelis, and our enemies, not just in ability, but in morality, culture, sanctity of life, and conscience. They are our neighbors here, he's speaking about the Palestinians and etc. But it seems as if at a distance of a few hundred meters away, there are people who do not belong to our continent, to our world, but actually belong to a different galaxy.
Yes, I have read this comment when it was issued by Mr. Katsav. Yes, it is a shame. This is, one feels ashamed to belong to. I used to be an Israeli in quotes.
Indeed.
And I'd never be proud to be in the same nationality with such people talking nonsense like that, which is, we haven't forgotten what the Nazi Germans used to speak about their supremacy. And this is very, very stupid. If we simplify this, take the stories in the West, the quickest shooter will be always shot, if not tomorrow, then after tomorrow, because you can't rule the world with telling all people you are nothing and I am the best. Nobody will keep up with that.
It's absurd. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And I want to thank you, Edward Badeen, for being our guest today. We only have 1 more minute, so I'm going to say, actually, we have 2 minutes. So why don't you have 2 minutes, Mr. Badeen, to give us some closing thoughts. Would you like to give us some closing thoughts?
Well, I want to thank you and encourage you to go on with your. It's almost a mission in order to shake people awake, beginning with oneself and then with others, and telling them, hey.
Oh, I think I lost him. We lost. Can you imagine? I feel so bad. Anyway, time is up. This is Palestine Today. I'm going to invite Edward Badeen back on the show, because I loved having him as a guest. So we'll be on again next week with a new guest. I hate that we got disconnected from Edward Badeen. I'm going to blame Joe for that. He's looking at me. It's his fault. Joe, shame on you. Anyway, we'll be back next week with another great show. So join us next week, and I'll invite Edward Badeen back on because he tells wonderful stories. Thank you for listening to Palestine Today. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
No matter your faith or community, this is a crime against humanity. Gaza turned into a prison camp. Apartheid war divides the West Bank.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Chris Earl Phillips. For this afternoon, sunny and a high near 100. Tonight, clear, low around 67. Tomorrow, sunny and a high near 94. Tomorrow night, patchy fog after 11. Otherwise, mostly clear, low around 62. Heading into the work week, we started on Monday with patchy fog before 11. Otherwise, sunny and a high of 88. Monday night, patchy fog after 11. Otherwise, partly cloudy, low of 62. On Tuesday, patchy fog before 11. Otherwise, sunny and a high near 90. That's your weather forecast for this hour from the station that leaves no listener behind. NBC News Radio, AM 1050 KCAA.
This is the KCAA Community Calendar. On June 30th, the 27th Annual Tin Man Triathlon starts with a 5K walk and run around the beautiful Cal State San Bernardino campus. Triathletes continue with a 9-mile bike ride featuring a challenging grade into Devil's Canyon, topped off with a 100-yard swim in the pool, and then a sprint to the finish line. Relay teams are welcome. Proceeds benefit the many San Bernardino Sunset Rotary Club projects from local scholarships. For registration information, go to rotarytinman.org. And that's your KCAA Community Calendar.
Living the country life. Ideas and inspiration for your place in the country.
Road maps tell you where you're driving, but if you're on a backpacking trek, use a topographic map to see the terrain and contours of the land. The contour lines are key information on a topographic map. They connect points of equal value. The closer the contour lines are to each other, the steeper the slope. Index contours are labeled, and the contour interval is determined by counting the number of intermediate contours that are displayed between the indexes. The lines on a topographic